guys, welcome back to Esports Closet, where Jake and Alex break things down. Today we kind of have an interesting one. So the former head of YouTube gaming actually went to Polygon. Now, Polygon is a Web3 company. He recently just did an interview with Delphi Digital that actually maybe foreshadowed a couple of things that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, Fwiz, obviously former head of YouTube gaming, widely known in the esports and gaming scene. So clearly, if he leaves YouTube gaming, a passion project he started years ago, there's got to be a good reason. He actually talked with Delphi Digital about, first and foremost, what YouTube's role with NFTs is going to be around a recent announcement where YouTube said they're going to be integrating NFTs more. It's actually Fwiz first out stating that apparently he sees it as a bridge of the gap, a repository for content of finding out what NFTs actually are. And it gets way more interesting later on.
I'm curious about how you think about, sort of the role that these big platforms are playing in the Web2 era and how that might relate to sort of the world we might be moving towards.
No, it's a great question, man. I think, at YouTube, we've spent a lot of time thinking about it. The easiest answer for like what YouTube's current participation in Web3 is we're the largest repository of learning and content for anything that's crypto, blockchain, Web3 based, right? If you really want to learn about anything that's happening in this space and you're very fascinated by it, the best place you can possibly go is youtube.com. I think that says a lot about really what YouTube's offering is in the Web2 world to Web3, right? And I think YouTube is going to be responsible for onboarding hundreds of millions of people into the space and learning from the space. I think that's like that's the low hanging fruit, if you will, opportunity. And I think like we have to start figuring out other ways that we can participate in this space. Most recently we tried something that was really fun. We gave, each year we give, our top 1,000+ creators and really just try to spread out love and give our creators gifts every single year, right? Just to say thank you for them participating and being content creators on the platform. This year we did and sent out NFTs. So we worked with 3 different artists. We partnered with Infinite Objects and then Dapper Labs on fulfillment, and we sent out NFTs to our creators and they loved it. It was a huge hit, right? And so I do think, I can't speak for the other tech companies because I feel like they're all going to try to enter it in some way, shape, or form in their own way. But for YouTube, it feels like a very natural fit to figure out how we kind of do certain things within the creator economy to help, bridge the gap.
So just to kind of highlight a key point, I think it's really interesting that he mentioned that YouTube is going to basically be responsible for onboarding the general public into the Web3 world. I think it'll be really interesting to see how they choose which creators and even which projects to actually promote.
And I think it's going to be a really scary time because we are very well aware of the backlash that NFTs get in the gaming space and in general. So it's going to be a very tough, I would say, ocean to navigate for YouTube as to what they do want to onboard. It's also Fwiz talking about the stigma that gamers have faced previously and how that has changed with the development of Web 2 and Web 3 and onward. It's very clear that gaming is not what it used to be and it is a part of the future. And he thinks NFTs will also play a role in that.
I'm wondering as well, given how things have evolved, just sort of how you reflect on like the role that games are playing in sort of modern society and where we're at. I always like to reflect on our journey as a digital species, as I like to say, but I'm curious on your thoughts around the role that these are playing in our modern sort of digital and entertainment landscape and sort of what the future might hold for them.
Yeah, what's so funny, like even if you look back like 10 years ago, the stigma and cliche around gamers was just that it was like young boys playing in their like parents' basement, right? And so if you just think about what has happened over the last 10 years where gaming has truly been something that everybody does. You have 2.5 billion people that play video games in some way, shape, or form, even if they don't self-identify as a gamer, right? They're playing mobile games or whatever the case may be. And so what has happened is the development spectrum of types of games have gotten so much more broad, so much more inclusive. And so I think really what you're starting to see is like gaming is really the number one form of entertainment for Gen Z. I think because of the diversity of games and because it's so inclusive now, that has brought it a long way. And so to me, I'm like astonished at the impact that has had on just, the entertainment industry, let alone the world at this point where everybody's participating in it in some way, shape, or form. And I think because of this, you're starting to have these conversations like, what is the metaverse? What does it mean? People spending more time in digital worlds, because I think people find not only just entertainment in gaming, but they're finding their like social identity and community inside of the games industry as well. And so these are pretty like tectonic shifts in just a short amount of time, 10 years being that. And I think you're going to continue to see that where I don't even know 10 years from now if we're going to be calling them video games because like everybody's going to be participating in digital environments and that it'll almost be like such it'll just be like such a common occurrence anymore. And I think people will just realize that this is like impacting their lives in much more ways than they realize.
As you can see, I mean, even now, basically, we're all kind of finding our communities on this online world. So it's really interesting to see how that plays out and how it's kind of even bleeding into the next part he talks about, which is actually the Wild West of blockchain gaming. All of the projects are so brand new and still being developed. So it's really hard to know which projects to actually promote and believe in, because there are a lot of people who are creating NFTs saying a project will come out and then project never ever comes out.
Or just bad people. There are a lot of bad actors.
That's true.
There's tons of bad projects. There's rug pulls. We literally talked about Ice Poseidon a couple days back, and that's obviously not NFT, but it's crypto, NFT, Web3. But Fwiz also does a good job explaining that there's obviously a lot of bad things out there, and hopefully with time that might get corrected.
Building on that and what you've seen in there in the growth with kind of the Web2 side, what do you think is missing from the Web3 gaming NFT scene that is needed to help kind of accelerate the progress or take it to the next level?
There's like a lot of things, right? If you think like one, there's so many NFT like projects, roadmaps where they're horrendous, right? Or they're selling NFTs in order to raise money to develop a game that's never going to come. So right now, if you're not like very savvy, like you could just get your ass handed to you, right? You can get into the wrong project, you can get scammed, you get rugged, right? Some of these games that are coming out are like comically bad, right? And so I think you just need some like overall professionalism and polish in this industry, right? And it's cool because like some of it is genuine great indie games that people are going to play in. But some of them that can be like indistinguishable from like a really bad game or bad economy or bad tokenomics or whatever they're doing that could be wrong. Because listen, like, we have to be mindful of like the human nature of this. People are going to come in with money they worked hard to earn, and they're going to spend it in this place. This place is really like, it's hyper volatile right now, like Web3 gaming. And like, they might not know everything and how to place this money. And they might, spend $200 to buy an NFT to get into a game. And 2 months later, that thing is like $6 or they can't even get it, can't even unload it. Right. It's so different when you go into like, I know Valorant's not going anywhere anytime soon. And so like my investment feels pretty safe, even though it's not liquid. Right. And so I do think like we need to have, better safety, like better UI on some of the consumer like facing stuff, like, the MetaMask wallet and Ronin and all of this, so that it's much easier for, a general consumer to kind of feel like they can get into the space. Like, oh, I understand like this token that I'm buying, or I understand this NFT, or like I understand that this game is new and so there's volatility in it versus this, 3-year-old game, right? And so I do think we're like in the wild, wild west right now of blockchain gaming. And so I think as some of this stuff gets figured out, as the cream rises to the top and then becomes more stable, participation becomes a little bit easier to get into, I think then you're going to see like that will be the meaningful turning point. And then obviously, like I keep preaching, like higher polished games, a little bit more well-balanced games, like these play to earn games, there's definitely like a fine line where, you need to have higher spending power and so forth, right, to kind of keep getting further. So there's a lot that needs to be unpacked, but I mean, that's the fun and that's the exciting part of being in this space. It's like figuring these things out, helping improving these things, raising awareness around them. I mean, I think people need to be able to explore and take risk without judgment. And I feel like anybody that's in Web3 is doing that. Anybody that's looking at Web3 from the outside is highly judgmental, right? And so you're kind of, I think this is like something that will continue to play out for the foreseeable future. But these are the things that need polished up on the blockchain gaming side. It's, when you democratize it the way that, the way that kind of Web3 does, you got to take the good with the bad. And I think right now the bad seems to be outshining the good, but it won't stay that way forever in the public eye.
It's kind of interesting because we're getting to the point where people are questioning, is gaming just going to become the crypto world? And as Fwiz talks about, he kind of says, I don't think that there needs to be a need for that. I want, my kid or whoever, I'm talking as Fwiz, to be able to play Minecraft. I don't have a kid. I want him to be able to play Minecraft without worrying about, do I have to buy this? Do I have to buy that? Am I using real money? And honestly, I personally agree. I think that you should be able to play a game without needing to buy in. And Fwiz goes in to actually further elaborate on this.
That, do you think the games in the future that will be most successful will have to kind of obfuscate the crypto component and people can come in, play, not realize there's a crypto element, and then start to get involved on that front, or do you think they'll be more crypto native from the start, and then the games themselves are what will lure people in?
There's kind of like a couple of questions that I hear in that. Like, one, we should make it abundantly clear that not every game needs to be a blockchain crypto-based game. Like, Minecraft doesn't need to, you know, like, I want my son to be able to play like a Minecraft and Roblox without having to worry about like depositing Ethereum into his digital wallet, you know, like, just enjoy games, have fun. A lot of people play games just to escape reality, to be entertained. They don't need to be introduced to the economics. They don't need to be introduced to all of this, like, you know, scarcity of items and selling these items and having to purchase these ones or playing to earn, right? So like, just like chalk that off and allow people to just enjoy playing video games for the pure entertainment and keep that kind of the way that it is. And I think that's fine. I do think then you have this subsection where if you're in crypto, the best way to get the next, you know, billion users or 100 million users, whatever metric you're focusing, will absolutely be gaming, and it'll be the introduction of this. But the flow is brutal right now. Like, think about the Axie flow. Like, Axie continues to be the kind of like prime example. Dude, like, imagine what somebody has to go through. It's like, okay, what is this? I'm like, okay, I got a Ronin wallet, and then it's like MetaMask, and like, and then I've got to buy, you know, like, I got to figure out how to get like USD into like Ethereum, and then I'm like, you know, purchasing 3 Axies to play, and all of a sudden, before you even get to start the game, you're like, I've spent 4 hours setting up wallets, like buried my seed phrase in the ground in the backyard, and spent $1,000 on 3 Axies, and now I'm in, like, what the fuck do I do now, right? And so, like, we got a long way to go on this, like, barrier of entry and getting people in, but I think everybody's moving that way. So, yeah, I think, like, ultimately, as all of that process gets smoothed, and it will get much smoother, and we reduce the barrier to entry, you know, these people that you kind of like, they're gaming first, will maybe start to establish over the next decade that they're actually like crypto native then, right? Because then they're like, oh, I love this space and I'm in it. And then once you're in and you understand like the game economies, I feel like it kind of is like my path. You're like, this is like, you know, there's so much to unpack here. You're like, oh, what is a DAO? Like, oh, I can participate in this. Like, oh, what's a guild? Now I'm a part of this, right? And so it opens up like all of these new elements to a gamer that don't exist over here, right? And so I think that's the fun of it. And as this becomes much smoother, you know, that funnel will, that aperture will open up to the user base. And then all of a sudden, yeah, those people will obviously be identified as like crypto native folks.
And I think after all of this, there's obviously going to be a wide array of backlash, but also support for someone who is clearly very smart. He's very innovative. What he did with YouTube gaming and what he had with YouTube gaming was pretty big. And so for me, I'm definitely hesitant about crypto, Web3, NFTs, but it's very interesting when someone this important and this smart is so bullish about it that they leave YouTube gaming, an amazing thing that he had built with them, to go to a different studio to do NFTs. So for me personally, and I understand there's going to be a lot of back and forth and a lot of debate here, but when someone like Fwiz has trust in it and wants to back it, I am definitely going to be curious what he builds with it, and I will be watching. So we just wanted to give all of you guys a bit of the reasoning, and shouts to Delphi Digital for a full podcast. Go check it out with Fwiz of why he left YouTube gaming for this thing that a lot of us don't even know what it is.
Interesting he's backing it, because I think there is a lot of skepticism regarding Web3, probably even for me and for you. So I think the future will be really exciting, and it'll be cool to see where Fwiz kind of takes this, because it kind of feels like he might be a founding father on this.
Yeah, we will see what he does next. We'll keep an eye on it, and so we hope you guys all enjoy. We got one last thing for you. It's pretty simple.
What do you guys think? Oh, you're dripping.
Okay, bye.
Bye.